Adding and editing. This video will focus on how to add and edit resources on the DVIRC website. The DVIRC operates on a wiki basis, meaning all agencies that have a login to the DVIRC website can add and edit information contained on the website. The exception to this rule is that an agency cannot edit information for another agency that also has a login to the website. For example, I am currently using a Woman Inc. login. When I go to Woman Inc. record, and I click on the Woman Inc. page, you will notice on this record that edit buttons appear. If I click on the edit buttons, I will be able to update the information as needed. Now, if I visit another agency, for example, Asian Women's Shelter, I will see that no edit buttons appear. This is because Asian Women's Shelter is a DVIRC member agency, meaning they have a login to access the system. Only staff at their agency can update information contained on the DVIRC. All DVIRC member agencies can add new resources to the website, including the referral list. Additionally, as mentioned earlier, all DVIRC member agencies can edit information for records that do not have an associated login. Let's look at an example. Here is 24 Hour Oakland. They are not a member of the DVIRC. This means that they do not have a login. If I click on the agency record, you will see that edit buttons appear. Now, let's look at how to add and edit information on the DVIRC. Adding agency and service location. We consider an agency to be an entity, normally a nonprofit organization, that provides services to a community through one or more service locations. Before adding an agency, make sure that is not already listed on the website. To do this, run a search. I'm going to add one as an example. I'll call it ABC Agency. No results show up, so we can add the new agency. To add a new agency, you will need to click on the New Agency button here. A new window pops up asking you to add information. All information, lined in red, is required information, and you must enter information into these fields to save. Let's fill in the agency's information. For the description, you can include the agency's charter and mission. For now, I'll just type in some text. After I've entered in all the information, I can click Save. The agency information will appear in a new screen for your review. If you find an error, you have the option of correcting it by clicking on the Edit button. Otherwise, move on to create a service location by clicking on Add Location. A service location represents a physical location where the agency provides services to a community. Information must be entered into fields with red lines in order to be saved. Let's go through some of the fields. Service location name. This is the name of the service location displayed on the information list for the agency. I'll fill in my service location as ABC Agency. For other locations, I might have a name that describes where it is or what service there is. For example, I may write Oakland Office or 24-Hour Shelter. Agency. This is the agency to which the service location belongs. This is automatically filled in to be the agency you just created. Address information includes the street address, zip code, city, and state. You also have the county field. The county field is a required field. If you click on it, and if you notice that your county is not located here, you can click on the Other. Once you clicked Other, enter in your county. Wheelchair accessibility. Check this box if your agency has wheelchair accessibility. Location administrator. This is the name of the DVIRC user who is acting as the service location administrator. Note that only users can assign other DVIRC users as a location administrator. I would click on this button here, the magnifying glass, and select one of these users. The users listed here are all users that have a login to the agency. Other fields include contact information, email, phone, and fax. You also have a default service type. This lets you choose whether services associated with this location will be set up as a confidential record, a non-confidential record, or a normal record. Most services are normal. You can change the settings associated with a service at any time, so you're not stuck with what you pick here. If I pick either type of shelter, the site will add extra sections on available bed and shelter characteristics on the next page. If I pick confidential shelter, the location associated with it will have its address erased from the site. Let's pick non-confidential shelter. Once all the information has been entered, let's click Save. The service location will appear in a new screen for your review. If you find an error, you can click Edit here. Otherwise, click on the Edit button next to the service that has been automatically generated for this location. Adding service detail information. On this page, you will note that several of these fields correspond with search filters on the main Find Resources page. The way I fill out information in these fields will affect how easy it is for providers to find my services during a search. I'll mention these as they come up. For more information about search filters, see our previous video on using the Finding Resources page. Service detail name. This should reflect the program or service provided. For example, I will type in homeless shelter. The service location name is already selected and corresponds to the location page you just created. Service description. Here is where you can add information about the service. Record type. This corresponds to what we call default service type on the service location page. As you remember, we chose non-confidential shelter. Phone number. This phone number is for the services, which could be different than the agency's main business line. Service type. You can choose all the categories that apply to your service. Here we'll choose homeless shelters and housing. These correspond to the categories under the Services Offered search filter on the Find Resource page. If someone does a search for homeless shelter, my service will turn up. Phone number hours. Here you can put in the hours of operation for the phone number. Now we've come to the available bed information section. Because I chose a record as a shelter, I can indicate how many spaces we have available at the shelter. Next, we have the waitlist section. Here you can indicate if a specific service has a waitlist. TTY/TTD fields. If your service has hearing impaired TTY or TTD lines, you can indicate that information here. Service characteristics section. In this section, you can indicate the age population served, if there are any costs associated with the program, if there are any eligibility requirements, how to apply to the program, what the service hours are for the program. Also, you can indicate service hour characteristics, which are general in nature. This roughly corresponds to service hours. It is a searchable category of hours of operation. Since my service hours were Monday through Friday, 1 p.m., I'll choose normal business hours. If a provider is looking for services that operate during specific times, they can use the service hour filter to search one or a couple of these categories. I would want to choose all the categories apply. We also have a box called Services Offered. Here you can enter in even more details about your program. Lastly, we have a Languages Spoken on Site field and an additional language checkbox. Languages spoken on site is a field where you can choose all the languages in which the staff are able to communicate with clients. Languages are also a searchable category. A provider can use the languages spoken filter to search the languages a client speaks and search for only services that offer it. Additional languages is a checkbox that your agency can select if they offer outside interpreters to people who need them. The last section is shelter characteristics. In this section, you can add information about shelter living arrangements, average length of stay at a shelter, and information about maximum number of children a shelter can accommodate. After indicating all the information and ensuring that all boxes lined in red have information in them, I can click Save. I automatically get taken back to the service location page, but I can click Homeless Shelter to see the service detail page. If you need to change anything, you can click on the Edit button. Otherwise, I'll go back to the service location page to add a new service. Anytime you want to add a new service to an existing location, you will be able to do that from the service location page. Now I see a screen where I'm prompted to select a service record type from a drop-down menu. I can pick Non-Confidential Shelter, Confidential Shelter, or Normal. I'll click Normal. I'll put the service detail name as Housing Assistance this time. I won't fill this entire page out, but you can see that the fields are the same for the homeless shelter one that we just created. The exception being that this record is normal, so we do not have an available bed section or a shelter characteristics section. Reviewing and cloning. Let's review the resource that was just created. On the main Find Resources page, I'll search for ABC Agency. I can see that my agency, location, and service detail page appear in a row here. If I ever want to edit any of my information, I can click on any of these pages and do so. Now let's talk about cloning. I would go to the service location page first. Then I click the homeless shelter link to see the service detail page I created. You will see a clone button appear. By clicking it, I can create an exact duplicate of my homeless shelter service. I can edit the information on this duplicate. This can be useful if you want to enter another service that's similar to the first one without having to fill in all the fields again. You can just tweak the fields that you want to change and click Save. Now I see my duplicate page. The last thing I want to note is that if a record ever needs to be deleted off the DVIRC, the agency must contact the coordinator at Women Inc. by sending her an email at Mariya, M-A-R-I-Y-A, @womaninc.org. This is the end of the adding and editing resource video.